Again, my name is Shaun Zavadsky, Vice President of FirstService Residential. I have been in property management for a little over 20 years. I have been with FirstService Residential for 14 of those years. And today we are going to talk about how to work best with your management company. There will be some tips and tricks in there for some self-managed communities as well. At the very least, the one thing that I hope you come away from this meeting with is work towards alignment, whether it's your property manager or any other vendor within your HOA. Work towards alignment and communicate. At the end of the day, if you have a problem, raise your hand, whether that's with management or any vendor. Because as great as some of my managers are, we cannot read minds just like you can't read our mind. Have an open dialogue conversation around alignment at the end of the day. So in order to talk about how to work well with management companies, we need to understand the very basics of roles within the communities that we manage, beginning with the homeowner role. This is a brief list, of course, of the basics of how homeowner roles are within HOAs. Having access to governing documents, of course, amending and approving governing documents, approving special assessments if the docs require. I typically don't like to use all caps, but at the bottom I felt it's important because this is one of the most challenging parts of our industry post-COVID, which is be respectful of fellow homeowners, the board, and management. This is where we've seen an exponential rise in problem issues within HOAs. One of my retired attorney friends who worked in the HOA space, she retired mostly because of this a little bit early. But she said that she wrote about 20 no contact orders a year post-COVID. She hadn't written 20 no contact orders in the entire 30 years pre-COVID in her legal history. So if that just gives you an idea of where we are, this is where really open dialogue and communication between your manager and the board is very significant. Also, engaging a law firm early on in the process when you're having one of these issues to ensure that you're navigating it correctly. As far as homeowners go, does everybody know the 65-25-10 rule in HOAs? So 65% of your homeowners are not going to be involved at all. They have no desire to be involved. They live in an HOA because they don't want to be involved. So don't expect them to be involved in any way, shape, or form. When you need those docs modified, you're going to have to go door to door in most cases. Minnesota did change the statute, so there are some ways to get around that, doing certified mailings and so forth, where non-voting is a yes vote now. But just make sure, again, to work with a law firm like SJJ or any others if you are going down that road. 65% are not involved at all. 25% are involved at what I like to say a healthy level. They're going to attend your meetings. They're going to review your financials, attend the annual meeting, participate in voting, especially for the board. These are your board members, usually are grouped into this 25%, and then the 10%. So 10% is who we hear from 90% of the time. And I'm sure it's who you hear from 90% of the time. They're the most actively involved, and they're the ones that really require a strong sense of communication. So who does what? Of course, within the community, the manager listens, gathers information. I think it's important to understand the role of the manager in this. The manager, we work on the behalf of the board. We have lots of different communities in here, lots of different styles of communities. Each one requires a tailored approach. There is not a one-size-fits-all for any management company. We have to tailor our approach to managing your community individually because there are different needs within every community that we manage. But again, we work at your behalf. So for board members, you're going to direct the management company in what you want them to do. This is also one of the reasons why we're indemnified in the management agreement and why we are listed as additional insured. That's a really common question I get that bubbles up to me. Why are you requiring us to be listed on, or why are you requiring the management company to be listed on our insurance policy? Do you not have insurance? Of course we have insurance. But for decisions that the board are making, we will be the ones who will also be sued. In the event of litigation, the management company gets named every single time. I get one of those pieces, and this includes everything from mortgages to anything where people think that they could tap an additional insurance company, they're going to tap that insurance company, which means we get named for every litigation for the 65,000 homes that we manage. If there's any litigation from a homeowner to a board or any vendor issues, that there's a reciprocal lawsuit, we are going to actually be named as well. So that's why we are listed as additional insured. It does not cost you any more money to name your management company as additional insured. I'm going to talk about the 20,000 foot elevated view here. This is what I'm going to give you as far as the three biggest things where we see complaints, where we see issues within communities we manage. I'm not going to talk about the three that I wish I will never hear from again once I retire, which are pets, parking, and smoking. Those are always talked about. I don't ever want to hear about those issues again. But we have lawn and snow. Lawn and snow is a big one, especially when you go through a snow season like we just had, whereas the prior years were kind of mild for winters for Minnesota. This last one we received a pretty hefty snowfall. The issue that we have in HOA management is, of course, it's all done in bulk. It's all done at once. And for some reason, when people buy in a townhome, they're told, you never have to worry about this again. I've tried to coach and mentor realtors around that phrase, keep your snow shovel. And here's why. We all know that trace snow removal, they're not going to come out. So you're going to have a trigger depth. That trigger depth, 1.5, 2 inches. Some of my communities, to save money, go to 2.5 inches. That means that for those little bits of snow that you get, and if it happens in more than a 24-hour period, so let's say you get on a Tuesday, you get an inch of snow. Thursday, you get an inch of snow. Sunday, you get an inch and a half, and you have a 2-inch trigger. Your removal company is not coming out unless you're paying additional for it. So the manager is going to have to call that person out. It's important all that is communicated prior to the snow season and also before every snowfall. So talk to your manager about making sure that that happens, because you will have very angry homeowners when you have 3.5 inches of snow on the ground and nobody's come out, and they'll think nobody's doing their job, including the board. That simply is not true. It's how the contract reads. All about alignment and communication. Again, backdragging is a big deal, especially people who have moved from a single-family home into an HOA. They're used to getting their snowblower out immediately after snowfall. No vehicles have driven on it, and they're going to get all the way down to the pavement every single time. They move into a townhouse, all of a sudden they're backdragging. Backdragging leaves a very thin layer on the pavement. That's simply how it works. We live in Minnesota, there's going to be snow, there's going to be ice. It's about how we communicate it so that your homeowners understand the process. And salt buckets, leave them everywhere in winter. You want to make sure that your homeowners can self-serve. Violations, this is probably one of the most litigated pieces that I see. And it is due to usually boards who are denying somebody that they don't like. I'll be very frank. And you know that that's the case because they deny the same person over and over again. And again, we have to send the letters because as your managing agent, we are the ones who are going to send that approval or denial letter on your behalf, but it's at the behest of the board. I have seen more litigation in this than I've seen anything else. Use violations as corrective actions, not punitive. And I'm going to give one story here, which is an account we dropped, a decade ago. So the condo association, and we had a board president who put $28,000 a year in the budget for income for violations. That should never happen. He was using, and the board told us they are using violations to supplement their budget. He had flat screens mounted in his home, and he would monitor the whole condo complex 24 hours a day from his office at home. These are some of the reasons why, honestly, some of this ended up at the state level this past year because of these kind of stories that got out. Don't do that. That is the fastest way to litigation. I don't know if that community was ever sued, but I would assume so because if I lived there, it would have been a problem. Know that there's a right to a hearing, of course, with the board. But the biggest piece of the management is we rely on owners and board members. Living in an HOA does not absolve homeowners from being homeowners. I think that's important. Simply because you have a management company, we're going to be out there once a month. That is industry standard. So your contract will read how often your management company is out there. Keep in mind, for what you pay, the typical management fee in Minnesota is in the 20,000s. You are going to get one visit a month from the manager. You're getting 4 to 5 hours a week from the manager at most. And then, of course, you're having accounting and all the support behind the scenes. But it's important to have that expectation and understand that up front. And then ARC requests. This is another one where we see highly litigated, again, for the same reasons I just described with violations. There tends to be a board to homeowner dispute, in my opinion, in many of these cases. As long as you follow your governing documents and you treat everybody the same, you will not run into an issue here. But the moment you treat a homeowner differently than you would have their neighbor, asking for the exact same architectural request, you are going to run into a problem. So just follow the procedure in your declaration, whether that be having a architectural request committee, which may be required. Many governing documents require that there be a committee. Otherwise, it's typically the board who's going to be approving these. Please remember that if it's not done correctly, you can engage an attorney first, but you can require that homeowner to turn it back. The biggest ones that I've seen are skylight installations where it's done in a roof that's commonly maintained and there is no approval done. That could lead to significant water intrusion into a unit. So we talked about role of homeowners, the board in that process. What is the role of the association manager? We talked about what our expectations, that 4 to 5 hours a week, once a month visits. But the main role of the manager is to implement the decisions established by the board. And of course, the following the governing documents. But we're going to administer any programs, services, activities of the association. And of course, our goal is to work in conjunction with the board to maintain property values and to ensure that everybody enjoys living in their home. It's never lost upon us, and I coach and coach and coach my team members on this. We work inside your homes. It's a very intimate space to be from a professional services working relationship. It's never lost upon us. It is the most valuable asset for many people, and we work inside that home every single day. It's a complex, very challenging industry and unique industry. So how to work well with your association manager? They should be an advisor, of course, versus an order taker. Yes, we're working on your behalf. We implement your decisions. So implementing all the board decisions. We help the board enforce the governing documents. We oversee day-to-day operations, providing assistance with operational and financial matters, and customer-focused resident liaison. And then you have the management company. Keep in mind that the management company itself that you hire is way more than just the manager. The manager is the face of the management company, and that's who you're going to associate with the company, but there's a lot more services being offered than just the manager. Management company is there to support the association manager, of course, behind the scenes support, advocacy, mentors, experts. Vendor management, I'm going to get to towards the end. At FirstService, I can't speak about other management companies, but at FirstService Residential, we have over 100 years of combined leadership experience. We have 8 regional directors, a president who's been in property management for quite some time, myself, as well as some other senior directors. We operate on a team approach where we have bulk contracting for pricing. We have separate accounting services and, of course, collections. So the manager's not doing AR on behalf of the association. We have a separate insurance team, that's their only job. We have 3 full-time people. Of course, we have financial experts, loans, and investing through FirstService Financial out of New York City. We have 8 HR professionals, recruiters, trainers that are local here to support the manager and those teams who have sited associates. We have over 350 sited associates here in town, so it's important you have a strong HR team to support them. All of this takes weight off of the property manager. That's critical so that the manager can focus on the board and the manager can focus on the day-to-day operations. Again, we operate on a team approach. Staffing challenges are shifting a little bit. The employment marketplace is shifting, whereas we've seen post-COVID, it was an employee marketplace, which meant if you had a sited community, so managers, maintenance techs, desk attendants, so forth, caretakers, it was challenging to find those associates. It's getting a little bit easier. Accounting, we still have some challenges finding really qualified accountants. There has been an accounting shortage for the last 3 to 4 years, not just in Minnesota, but across the country. So I want to talk about ancillary charges and vendor contracts, because this is critical. Ancillary services, first of all, it's what's called Exhibit A in your management agreement. Every management company has one. Some locally, I think 1 or 2 charge a flat rate for everything per month per unit. Most companies, though, will have a per charge for additional services rendered outside of the base scope. Why is that important, and why did the industry grow up that way? Instead of just charging, instead of $25,000 a year for management, you charge $50,000 a year for management. We do that to help keep dues low. We do that because management fees get charged to every single unit every month, called a per unit per month door fee, essentially. Townhomes are that $15 to $20 range, condos are $20 to $35 range, depending on complexity, per unit per month, single family, 10 to 12. If you increase management fees, that means that the dues are charged per month every single time to those units. Maintenance and construction arms exist in Minnesota alone. So we have 28 markets that we operate in for FirstService Residential. This is the only one with a maintenance and construction arm. Just know that you're going to see that for most management companies here in Minnesota. But vendor services goes one step farther. A lot of local companies have an add-on percentage onto work orders that are performed in your association. FirstService Residential does not do that. We're publicly traded. We have a lot more limitations on what we can do around transparency and so forth. Our CEO said we will never charge that. We will never have a 10 or 15% work order markup. It's not going to happen. Those are hidden fees that it's important that you look for, because they can really add up for charges for your community. The path to avoiding conflict in your community begins with a proactive and intentional approach. I really like talking to boards about this. Strategic planning is important. It's important you have a management company that works with you on strategic planning. It's important that you have a 3 to 5 year plan in place. We offer free financial services, cash flow analysis, et cetera, for that 3 to 5 year period. Just really helps you know where you're going to be with future projects that are coming up through your reserve plan. Some limitations on management. I think I'm getting close to about 5 minutes here. So professional management limitations, what managers should not be required or expected to do. A couple big ones in this list. Dispense legal advice. We are not going to do that. We are always going to refer you to an attorney. Oversee the annual audit or any questions that are related to your third-party CPA firm. We are not going to answer. I was in a meeting with a treasurer the other day, and he said, well, we hired you because you're big, you have a lot of experience, you should be able to answer these questions. With my experience, I can answer them, but I'm not an attorney and I'm not a CPA. Therefore, I'm not going to. Only because you as a community should be seeking professional service advice when needed or when required. Our job is to tell you when we think that is, not to give you the advice. Waive rules or negotiate with residents is a big one without good reason or without board approval, without prior board approval. We don't want to be doing that on the board's behalf. Again, we're your managing agent. We are not the decision makers. The board members are the decision makers in the community. We simply implement them. Briefly go over qualifications and certifications. These are through CAI. CAI is the only company in the country that does HOA management, education, certification programs, et cetera. There might be some of the local ones, but for the most part, these are the designations that you should be looking for. CMCA means that you've passed a proctored exam. You're going to comply with the CMCA standards of professional conduct. At FirstService, we require all of our managers to be CMCA designated or going through the process. For new managers, AMS means that you have 2 years of experience, essentially. You've completed at least 2 additional education courses through CAI, and there's a board certification process on this, where the board member who's worked with that manager for 2 years will sign off on it. The PCAM is the highest designation that our industry has. It means, of course, you've passed the CMCA, you've completed 6 of the 200 series courses, which is all of them, and then passed the case study and managed community associations for at least 5 years, so you have to have 5 years experience. The case study is you fly to a community in the country, you study that community for 2 days. At the end, you get 10 questions to respond to. Essentially, it's a little mini thesis. Typically, the case studies are about 150 pages long. When you return them, you get a pass-fail. And you only have 30 days to write that 150-page case study. So the LSM, you're not going to see in Minnesota. That stands for Large Scale Manager. These are the 15,000 Sun City West that you see. That's the Large Scale Manager. And then AAMC, you certainly, if you're looking for a management company, you should look for this. This is an accredited association management company with CAI. It means that they have a PCAM as the company senior manager, so that's myself with FirstService Residential. And we have at least 50% of our managers that hold a credential, one of the above. Again, we require all of ours at FirstService, so we at least meet the 50%. Soliciting bids for management. These are the main questions that you should ask that I think are the most critical for a successful partnership. And the top one is the most critical. How many associations does the manager that I'm going to be working with have in their portfolio? At FirstService, we keep that 8 or under. There's a reason, because we don't think you can do more than that. Some of our managers have 9 or 10. That's only because they've been with us for a really long time and they wanted a little bit more work. Again, we had 2 managers come from competing firms in the last year. One had 22 and one had 18. That's what we typically see here. Because again, if you're paying a management fee of $6,000 a year or $10,000 a year, to pay a manager what they deserve to be paid in today's marketplace, you're going to have 18 accounts in order to make that profitable for the company. And then how do you handle non-responsiveness from a manager? Ask that question. Is there a team of people? Is there a supervising manager, a director, a vice president, a president that you can go speak to? And will they meet with you? What is the timing of responses that are expected for board and homeowner? Can you save us money, of course, through bulk contracting or other ways? Site visits, project coordination, and board meetings, what do those look like? What does a board packet look like, et cetera? And then we can always assist you with a formal RFP. Whether or not you want us to bid or not, doesn't matter. We have templates that we can send you. So I help a lot of people in the HOA Leadership Network through the bidding process. Just reach out. We're happy to do that. You don't have to invite us to bid. You don't have to work with us. I'm just always happy to help out so that you get the best partner at the end. Pitfalls to avoid. The biggest ones, of course, are what I just talked about with those upcharges for work orders. Be very critical when asking that question and ask it correctly, because they can disclose it in their management agreement. It's fully legal. There's nothing illegal about it. But just know that if they have a 10%, 15, 20% markup, I just heard a company who has 25%. That's where they just went to in 2026. That means every work order that's coming through your property, the management company is getting 25% on top of that. Ask them for the bids. If they aren't providing you the bids and they say, you know what, that's ours to have, here's the cost for you, that's a clear indicator that they're adding a markup. If you just get a bid summary. We provide all of the actual bids in the bid summary, in the bid packet for the board meetings. Additionally, call the vendor. If you have a bid from TrueSeal for $1 million and you think that seems high, call the vendor and ask TrueSeal. Ask them. They will tell you, did you provide us a bid for $1 million, or was it $800,000, or was it $850,000, and the rest is markup? Lack of training for managers and board. Of course, no designated associates, so if they don't have any designations, that means they're not educating their managers. If they have high manager turnover, our turnover rate every year, year over year, besides the year after COVID, because that crushed our industry, and I'm really sad about that year, but our turnover is less than 10% every single year for managers. That is unheard of in the industry, by the way. We pay our managers the best we're able to. But just, do they have high manager turnover? Have you went through manager after manager after manager on your account? Lack of team support, and then dissatisfied vendors. Talk to your vendors. They know the management companies in town. They know the ones that pay their bills on time. They know the ones that the boards really enjoy working with. Talk to your vendors. And then if they have no accountability. So if they do not own their mistakes and will either write a check to pay for them, or at least work with you to correct them.